Ōkami is an action-adventure video game developed by Clover Studio and published by Capcom. It was released for Sony Computer Entertainment's PlayStation 2 video game console in 2006 in Japan and North America, and in 2007 in Europe and Australia. Despite the closure of Clover Studio a few months after the game's initial release, a version for Nintendo's Wii console was developed and produced by Ready at Dawn, Toes and Capcom, which was released in North America in April 2008, in Europe in June 2008, and in Japan in October 2009. Set sometime in classical Japanese history, the game combines several Japanese myths, legends and folklore to tell the story of how the land was saved from darkness by the Shinto sun goddess, named Amaterasu, who took the form of a white wolf. It features a distinct Sumi-inspired cel-shaded visual style and the celestial brush, a gesture system to perform miracles. Ōkami was one of the last PlayStation 2 games selected for release prior to the release of the PlayStation 3. Although it suffered from poor sales, the game received critical acclaim, earning the title of IGN's 2006 Game of the Year. The Wii version has earned similar praise, though the motion control scheme has received mixed reviews. A high-definition port of the game was released on the PlayStation 3 via the PlayStation Network in October 2012 and for retail in Japan in November 2012, supporting the use of the PlayStation Move motion controller. A sequel for the Nintendo DS titled Ōkami was released in Japan in September 2010, followed by North America and Europe in March 2011. Gameplay. The game has the player controlling the main character, Amaterasu, in a woodcut, watercolor-style, cel-shaded environment, which looks like an animated Japanese ink illustration with other styles of art. The gameplay style is a mix of action, platform, and puzzle gaming genres, and has been noted by many reviewers to have numerous similarities in overall gameplay style to the Legend of Zelda series. An inspiration that director Hideki Kamiya, a self-proclaimed Zelda fan, has admitted has influenced his general game design. The main story is primarily linear, directed through by Amaterasu's guide Ishun, though numerous side quests and optional activities allow for players to explore the game world and take the story at their own pace. By completing quests, side quests and small additional activities, Amaterasu earns praise, which can then be spent to increase various statistics of the character, such as the amount of health and number of inkwells for celestial brush techniques. Combat is staged in a ghostly virtual arena, and Amaterasu can fight enemies using a combination of weapons, fighting techniques and brush methods to dispatch the foes. At the end of combat, money is rewarded to Amaterasu, with bonuses for completing a battle quickly and without taking damage. The money can be spent on numerous items from merchants across the land, including healing goods, better weapons, tools and key items for completing quests. The money can also be used to buy new combat techniques at dojos throughout the land. Additionally, rare demon fangs can be earned through combat, which can be traded for additional, unique items that are beneficial in gameplay but not required to complete the game. Weapons inspired by the imperial regalia of Japan can be equipped on Amaterasu as either main or sub-weapons, and used in addition to other melee attacks that the player can have Amaterasu learn through the course of the game. Celestial brush. Unique to Ōkami is the celestial brush. Players can bring the game to a pause and call up a canvas, where the player can draw onto the screen, either using the left analog stick on the DualShock controller, or pointing with the Wii Remote or PlayStation Move controller in subsequent remakes. This feature is used in combat, puzzles and as general gameplay. For example, the player can create strong wind by drawing a loop, cut enemies by drawing a line through them, or fix bridges by painting on the broken one, amongst many other abilities. These techniques are learned through the course of the game by completing constellations to release the celestial brush gods from their hiding spots. It is also possible to upgrade or modify certain brush powers later in the game. For example, the Celestial Brush power, Inferno, can gain a new power called Fireburst, which has a different drawing pattern, and allows players to create flames without relying on torches or other related items. The player's ink for drawing is limited by the amount available in special ink wells, preventing the player from solely using brush techniques to defeat enemies. Ink is restored in the wells over time when the brush is not used. Plot. Story. The game is set in a Nippon based on Japanese folklore, and begins with a flashback to events 100 years prior to the game's present. The narrator describes how Shiranui, a pure white wolf, and Nagi, a swordsman, together fought the eight-headed demon Orochi to save Kamiki village and the maiden Nami, Nagi's beloved. Shiranui and Nagi are unable to defeat Orochi, so they seal the demon away. In the game's present, Susanoo, a descendant of Nagi and self-proclaimed greatest warrior, breaks Orochi's seal because he does not believe in the legend and wants to prove it false. Orochi escapes and curses the lands, sapping the life from every living being. Sakuya, the wood sprite and guardian of Kamiki village, calls forth Amaterasu, the sun goddess, known to the villagers as the reincarnation of the white wolf Shiranui, and pleads for her to remove the curse that covers the land. Accompanied by the artist Ishun, Amaterasu is able to restore the land to its former beauty. Throughout the journey, Amaterasu is hounded by Waka, a beautiful and strange but powerful individual who seems to have the gift of foresight and further teases Amaterasu and Ishun to his own mysterious ends. Additionally, Amaterasu locates several celestial gods who have hidden in the constellations. The gods bestow upon the goddess powers of the celestial brush to aid in her quest. Soon, Amaterasu and Susanoo battle Orochi to protect Kamiki village and rescue Susanoo's beloved, Kushi, recreating events from 100 years prior. This time, the duo are able to fully conquer the demon, causing a black, evil spirit to float northward. Amaterasu and Ishun then embark on a journey across Nippon, befriending many people along the way through their good deeds, and continue to remove Orochi's curse on the land through defeating other demons that release similar dark presences, all of which float northward. As Amaterasu travels to find the source of these evil spirits, she is brought to the wreckage of a ship able to travel through the stars. The Ark of Yamato, trapped in the frozen plains of Kamui. Waka appears and reveals himself as a member of the Moon Tribe, a long-living race who used the Ark to escape from Orochi's assault on the celestial plane and sail the heavens, unaware of the evil spirits. Imprisoned on the Ark, the demons attacked and killed all but Waka himself, resulting in the Ark crashing to Earth. Yami, the demon controlling all the evil spirits, appears and strips Amaterasu of her celestial brush powers before engaging her in battle. Amaterasu attacks Yami, gradually regaining her powers back, until Yami destroys the celestial gods, destroying Amaterasu's powers and leaving her near death. Ishun takes up his role as the celestial envoy and encourages all those they have helped to send their thoughts and prayers to Amaterasu, causing her to regain her powers and allowing her to destroy Yami, ridding both the Ark and Nippon of these evil beings forever. With her mission done, Amaterasu departs with Waka on the Ark to sail back to the celestial plane together. Characters: the player controls Ōkami Amaterasu, the goddess of the sun, in the form of a white wolf. Amaterasu is referred to in the Japanese and European version of the game as a female, while in the North American version she was genderless. While Amaterasu, when endowed with ink power, is seen by the player with red markings, cloud-like fur on her shoulders, and weapons on her back. Most of the human characters in the game only see her as a plain white wolf. Some believe Amaterasu to be the reincarnation of Shiranui, and do not recognize her spiritual nature. If the player depletes their power by overuse of the celestial brush, Amaterasu will temporarily revert to this mundane white form. Izune, an arrogant, inch-tall, wandering artist, seeking out the 13 celestial brush techniques for himself, accompanies Amaterasu and serves as a guide, dialogue, proxy, and as comic relief. He grows in character along with Ami throughout the game, becoming her true friend, inspiration, and eventually her savior. At the end of the game, Amaterasu encounters Yami, the main antagonist and final boss of the game, and who resembles a small fish inside a huge sphere, whose design is altered through the different stages of the battle. Yami is also the ruler of the demons. Before battle, he drains Amaterasu of her powers and leaves her as a plain white wolf. Amaterasu regains her powers throughout the fight, but, after the 4th round, Yami destroys them all again and leaves Amaterasu in a near-dead state. However, when Izune gets everyone to believe in Amaterasu before the 5th and final round, she changes into her most powerful form and battles Yami, vanquishing him forever. In the final battle, Yami also has a huge clawed hand, which demonstrates the evil which comes from humans' hands. The word Yami means darkness in Japanese. 2 other characters also reappear several times within the quest. Walker appears to Amaterasu several times in the game as a beautiful young flute-playing man in costume resembling a Tengu. He is aware of the goddess's true identity and foretells her future and at times battles with her. He leads the Tau Troopers, whose members Abe and Kamo are based on the 2 famous Onmyoji, Abe no Saimai and Kamo no Yasunori. Walker's dialogue, dropping French affectionate terms at times, conveys a sense of familiarity with Amaterasu. As it turns out that Walker is much older than he appears and has walked with Amaterasu on the celestial plane hundreds of years ago. The other is Orochi, the 8-headed demon and a major villain within the game which the player will encounter several times. Orochi repeatedly has threatened Kamaki village, demanding a sacrifice of a young woman. Each of its 8 heads is infused with a different elemental magic power, but the entire demon is susceptible to a special brew of sake available only at Kamaki village, allowing Amaterasu to defeat it while in its stupor. Throughout the game, the player encounters several other characters that are inspired from Japanese folklore. Development. Ōkami resulted from the combined ideas of Clover Studio. The game was originally built around depicting a lot of nature, but had no central concept or theme, according to lead designer Hideki Kamiya. Kamiya eventually created a minute, long demonstration movie showing a wolf running about a forest, with flowers blossoming in its wake, but still lacked any gameplay. Kamiya and other members of the team introduced ideas around the nature aspect and eventually led to the game's initial prototype, which Kamiya admitted was incredibly boring to play. Kamiya suggested that he allowed so many ideas from the team that resulted in the development moving off target, including creating more of a simulation. Eventually, they settled onto the gameplay found in the final product. The art in Ōkami is highly inspired by Japanese watercolor and wood carving art of the ukiyo-e style, such as the work of Hokusai. Ōkami was originally planned to be rendered in a more photorealistic 3D style. However, Clover Studio determined that the more colorful Sumi style allowed them to better convey Amaterasu's association with nature and the task of restoring it. The change was also influenced by limitations in the PS2 hardware to render the photorealistic 3D graphics. As a result of the switch to the watercolor style, the idea of the celestial brush came about. Isushi Inaba, CEO of Clover, noted that, "Once we fixed ourselves on a graphical style and got down to the brushwork, we thought, wouldn't it be great if we could somehow get the player involved and participate in this artwork instead of just watching it." That's how the idea of the celestial brush was born. Original concepts for enemies included the use of dinosaurs, but the designs settled onto more demon-like characters. Amaterasu's initial designs were aimed to avoid having the character look like your pet wearing clothing. The developers had considered having Amaterasu change into a dolphin when in the water and a falcon when jumping off a cliff, but dropped these ideas. Sakuya, designed around a peach motif, was envisioned with what were called Level 2 and Level 3 designs, where the character would wear less clothing as the story progressed. But the Level 3 appearance, effectively naked, was vetoed by Inaba. Waka's character was aimed to be a Tatsunoko-like character, with the hood designed to be reminiscent of those worn by the Gatchaman. Orochi in Japanese mythology is a gigantic creature, so lead character designer Takayasu Samaki designed the back of the demon to include a garden and palace. This inspired the game designers to include a bell in those structures that would be Orochi's fatal weakness in the game. The localization team had to translate 1,500 pages of text to make sure it made sense in a native Czech. Because of lack of plurals in the Japanese language and the large number of characters and conditional conversations that the player could interact with, the team recognized that certain elements of the game would not be recognized by Western audiences, but left enough text and details to allow the players to look up the information for themselves. Only one puzzle in the game had to be changed as it required knowledge of the steps in drawing a kanji character, which would be readily known for Japanese audiences. For the Western release, these steps were demonstrated in the game. The team noted that personalities of characters could be easily conveyed in Japanese text simply by the way sentences were constructed or slurred, a feature that could not directly be applied to localization. Instead, working with Kamiya, the team scripted the localization to either recreate the personality to match the Japanese version, or to create a whole new set of mannerisms for the characters as appropriate. Ōkami was shown at the 2005 E3 convention, approximately 30% complete, with a planned release in 2006. At this point, the game had much of the core gameplay, including the celestial brush and the combat system in place. The game was released a year later in 2006. However, just a few weeks following its release in North America to strong critical reception, Capcom announced the closure of Clover Studio. The Ōkami official complete works art book was published by Udon in May 2008. The game was re-released under Sony's Greatest Hits in Japan in August 2008. Naming and allusions. The title of the game is a pun. The word Ōkami in Japanese means wolf. However, the kanji characters used as the title of this game, if pronounced identically, mean great deity. So the main character is a great wolf deity. The same characters are also used to write the full name of the sun goddess Amaterasu Ōkami. The localization team opted to use shorter versions of Japanese names instead of replacing the names with Western-style ones. Izune's informal name for Amaterasu in the Western translation, Ami, was inspired by Kamiya, and is similar in tone with the Japanese informal name, Amiko. Throughout the game, Ōkami includes several references to other Capcom titles such as Beautiful Joe, which Clover Studios also developed. For example, Mrs. Orange's technique for making cherry cake parodies Street Fighter Sakuma's Shungoku Satsu, complete with a kanji word displayed on screen with her back facing the screen. Audio. The music in Ōkami is inspired by classical Japanese works. The final song, played over the credits sequence, Reset, is sung by Ayaka Hirahara. In May 2006, Capcom released an official 5-disc soundtrack for Ōkami in Japan. In the North American and European release, the player can unlock a jukebox to hear the in-game music upon completion of the game. At the 2007 BAFTA Video Games Awards, Ōkami won Best Score. Celipita has also published another album, a piano arrangement, entitled Ōkami Piano Arrange. It was released on the 30th of March 2007. Mika Matsuura both arranged the 10 songs, and performed it on the piano. The character's speech in the game is actually created by scrambling samples of voice actors' speech, with more emotional lines being created from voice work given in that emotion.